Hey guys, welcome back to TFBTV Showtime. I'm Luke C, and I'm here at GunCon 2025 with my good friend from Riflespeed, Mr. Kyle Lynch. Kyle, welcome back to the program and welcome to GunCon.
Thank you.
You and I have been talking for, I think it's like almost 4 years at this point, about the Riflespeed system. For those in our audience who don't know, can you tell us the story of how your Riflespeed adjustable gas controls kind of came about?
Yeah, I'll try to tell the short version of it. I get a little wordy on that one. So years ago, I was shooting a rifle competition, and it happened to be in Wyoming in April.
Okay.
So early in the spring out there, if you're not familiar, April is not really spring in Wyoming.
It's still winter, kind of.
Right, but we were blessed with a day on Saturday. It's a 2-day match. Saturday was 70 degrees and just incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
I had the best day I've ever had on the course of fire that day, and I was in first place by an enormous margin. Like the next guy couldn't even think about catching up, kind of a deal.
Right, not fractions of seconds. Or
It's huge.
You've got a healthy lead.
Right, and so we woke up the next day. I'm doing all the things that you shouldn't do in a rifle match, like thinking about the prize table and all the. Don't do that. But I did it. Woke up the next morning and I opened up the curtains in the hotel room and I see there's a foot of snow on the ground and it's about 6 degrees outside. So I get out there and I now have a single shot rifle.
You have no gas.
I have no gas.
It ain't got no gas in it.
The ammunition that I was using was factory match ammunition. It was incredibly accurate, and in that rifle, to that point, had been completely reliable. Well, when everything cold soaked in that sub-freezing temperature, now, of course, I wasn't getting the same gas pressure from the ammunition I was getting before.
Right.
It affects the lubricant, it affects the metal, it affects everything about the gun at that point. Now I have a rifle that won't cycle. Well, that started this process of I need a bigger gas port, which led to having negative consequences in the summertime.
Right.
When it's 100 degrees outside, and certainly if you put a can on that I have enlarged that gas port, I have another set of issues, which led to I need an adjustable gas block.
Right.
So I then spent the next year and a half or so breaking everything that was on the market at the time.
So you tried other people's gas blocks before you decided to make your own?
I tried everything on the market just looking for a solution as a shooter. And when I couldn't find it, I got so frustrated. I said, look, this is America's longest serving service rifle. This is America's rifle. We have to have a real duty grade, military grade, reliable, rugged, simple gas system for this rifle that will let us have the good performance that we want in all these conditions and configurations. So last year when everything really started to change, where wait times went from, we expected a year to we expected a few weeks.
Yeah.
Everything just went nuts for us. Nothing was in stock. No matter how many we made, we could not make enough, because as soon as people put a suppressor on that AR, they realize, man, this kind of sucks now.
Yeah.
And they're looking for a solution, which is an adjustable gas system for the AR.
Right, so you're not getting all that gas to the face, or maybe your rifle isn't running at all.
Right.
There's a bunch of different ways you can slice it up. With the Riflespeed Gas Controls in its base configuration, I guess if I were to just go to your website and buy one, it comes with, of course, the gas controls, the gas block and all that, the tubes and everything that you need. And it's 12 settings per plunger, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a thing I think a lot of people get wrong, is they think that there's only 12 settings on the gas system. Can you explain how your system works and demonstrate how there actually is more than just the 12?
Yeah, so we have a captured range of adjustment. Okay, and I have a couple of different ways of explaining how that's important. One is, if you've been shooting for a while, especially kind of on the precision rifle side, you may remember the older tactical rifle scopes where the elevation turret would go around 2 or 3 or 4 turns. So you might be seeing the number 5 on your elevation turret, but you were actually on 15 or 20. So you're lost, and this actually has happened to me. It has happened to everybody who shot one of those scopes in any serious way. You're shooting at a target thinking you have 5 mils of elevation dialed in, and you see an impact, way in the distance because you really had 15 mils of elevation turned in.
You forgot to reset your zero at the end of the last day.
Yeah, and you're lost in those turns. Well, we had to avoid that with the gas system.
Right.
Okay, you can't have, for something that is intended to be used for either a home defender or a law enforcement officer or a military person, you can't have a system that allows operator error to induce a failure like that.
Right.
So we said we've got to have this captured range of adjustment. Okay, there's a hard stop on each ends, meaning you really can't screw it up.
Right.
Okay, you can't get lost in the turns. One of the big knocks people have on like a set screw type adjustable system
Right, where
is
there's like 24 settings or something.
yeah, you could just turn that screw and keep going and going. You
Back
never
the
know
whole
where
thing
you
out.
are. You can back the whole thing out. So anyway, we have a captured range of adjustment for that reason. That requires us to have a limited amount of settings in less than one turn. We have just less
Right.
than 360 degrees. Okay? That would seem like it's limiting, but it is actually one of the strongest features of this system because it simplifies the use for the operator.
Right.
Okay? I can go from setting 1 to setting 12 in less than one turn. It's quicker to adjust that way.
No tools.
No tools. And what we found through a significant amount of R&D on the front end was 360 degrees with 12 increments provides the perfect amount of adjustment between settings. You want enough definition between each position you're not missing out basically on
Right.
positions.
You're getting the right amount of adjustable.
Right.
I mean, you're adjusting it at a meaningful increment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you have, let's say, 100 settings in one turn, going from number 33 to 34 is going to be almost irrelevant.
Right.
Okay? So we did a lot of work to really calibrate this thing so that each setting means something, but it's not so coarse that you're missing out.
Right. You're not skipping settings that could be useful, but you're also not just jumping to like, a 2.2 versus like a 2 to a 3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in doing that, we have enough resolution with each setting that it's meaningful, but we also have modularity built into the system so that if that range of adjustment that you have between 1 through 12 is not optimal for your carbine, you can actually move that entire window of adjustment that you have with your 12 settings so that you have all of the benefits of this captured range of adjustment that takes place in less than one turn. Okay, it's ease of use, it's a lot of good things about that, on any configuration. Okay, the examples that I use when we kind of give these talks is if I've got a 5-inch blackout that's only going to shoot subsonic ammunition, I'm probably going to have a different range of gas settings that I need than if I have one of the big Nemo Arms 300 Winchester Magnum, the giant Magnum AR type guns. You're probably going to have a different range of gas settings for those two guns. That's kind of the extreme examples.
Yeah.
Well, the modularity of our system means you can accomplish all of that for any configuration, with any chambering, any cartridge, any gas system length, any barrel length, because we have the different plunger lengths you can put in your gas control to really move that window of adjustment that you have with settings 1 through 12.
Right.
But we have now released the limited exposure series, which allows you to use one of our gas controls on a gun where the handguard is almost all the way out to the muzzle device.
Right.
Okay, and I've got some here we'll look at where you can see we have an enlarged ring that is very heavily castled to give you significant purchase on that.
Yeah, just with 2 fingers.
2 fingers, and you just grab just a quarter of an inch is really about all you need of exposure. And you can make that adjustment very easily now, even with that handguard pushed way out.
And you guys also, this is kind of like a carryover from, I guess, like maybe it was the second iteration. You guys have basically what equates to a throw lever, and you've also added that into the new, I guess, the castle system there.
Yeah, there are some of the models that we have that. Those, in fact, one was specifically made for the West Virginia State Police. They had really nice guns and really nice cans, but when they put them together, they didn't work. This is something we have agencies contact us all the time with the exact same story. Mm-hmm. We have good guns, we just bought good cans, and now they don't work together. Can you help us? And of course, that's no problem. That's exactly what we do. So the West Virginia State Police now have an RS-7524 on every one of their 10.5-inch SRT carbines, 9.5-inch handguard, meaning it's pushed all the way out there to the muzzle device, and they have just a limited exposure control knob on there to access it, and it has solved their problems completely.
And that's kind of like, this problem, we've always talked about it, I guess, in the gun world, because that is something I have tried to do. And you now, instead of me having to put together an upper that does that, you kind of have already done it, because you guys offer your own uppers now as well.
Yeah, we do. We actually started that out, I won't say reluctantly, but that really wasn't in the plan to start with. Our goal is to produce these gas controls and get them out to everyone, either if they're going to build their own rifle or work with OEMs. But early on, when nobody knew who we were, there were no OEMs that were using this system. So we got into the option of building uppers really to serve those customers who either didn't have the knowledge or the time or the inclination or the tools to build their own AR. So it's almost kind of a customer service thing, really, and that has turned out to be very popular. Fortunately, now we have quite a few OEMs that are putting this system on their uppers or firearms.
Right.
So the customers
You guys have
a
become
lot
the
more
gas
options.
blocks for that rifle. Which is,
Exactly.
I think that's really cool because I've tested it on a lot of different rifles now, and I think like the Ruger S-FAR
Yeah.
needs one of those like desperately.
I have a lot of people with S-FARs saying, "Hey, I've got this gun and I love it." But
Order a great rifle, but
Yeah.
the rifle speed just makes it that much better, in my
Right,
opinion. So
right,
yeah, it's great to see you guys come along, and like we've got this is a 12.5 up here, and this is basically what you're talking about in terms of like
perfect
just
example. So we've
getting
got,
the hand guard so we
Right.
can have all of our accessories and stuff.
you can see we basically got just a quarter of an inch or so of clearance where you can access that control knob, but it's just so easy to turn.
Now, does that change? Like, you have a muzzle device on here, and I know you guys ship them without, but with this configuration, does that limit what kind of muzzle? Like, there's a lot of QD devices out there. Does that limit which ones you can use?
Yeah, we have not seen too much of an issue with that yet. There are some muzzle devices where you've got a piece that hangs over,
Yeah, it comes
basically.
back, yeah.
Yep. And in that case, there is usually not enough hangover that a shim stack or spacer can't push that muzzle device out just a
okay.
little bit to do that. And we have a small amount of clearance built in. I know you can't see it, but this one is actually one of the muzzle devices that does have a rearward hangover.
Right.
So the thread shoulder is actually a little bit forward of what you can see here because of this muzzle device. But
So
yeah,
it's basically
been
going to
considered.
be the tightest fit possible.
Right.
And you guys have done all the measurements and found the components, like this is a CMT rail, I think, right? So
Yep.
like you guys have found all the components, which I think is the hardest part for a lot of people is finding the right upper, the right barrel length, the
Right.
right muzzle
The
device.
pieces
and
that
everything.
work together.
Yeah, and like you guys have kind of done that, which I as a customer appreciate that. So it's a really cool way to kind of introduce people to your product.
And it's challenging too because we've talked about this. Just because it says it's a 9.5-inch handguard doesn't mean it's a 9.5-inch handguard.
Right.
Just because it says it's a 14.5-inch barrel or a 12.5-inch barrel doesn't mean it's actually a
It depends on
12.5-inch
where
barrel.
they count like the measurement.
Yeah, it's
I think-
frustrating. You would think that would be like an objective thing that would be easy to do, but
Yeah.
apparently it's not.
Yeah, well, we can't have everything, I guess. But
guess.
it's great to see Riflespeed growing at such an astronomical rate. I think we have everyone watching these videos out there to thank. We have a very healthy customer base now. Suppressors are in vogue, and I think people. We talked about this a little bit. Even before the show. Everyone's focusing on reduced, gas and lead exposure, right? All those toxins coming back to us, and the great way to do that is to make sure your rifle is tuned and dialed in. So it's not beating you around and your equipment around, but also you're not getting all that extra gas to the face. So it's cool to see how the whole industry's come together to kind of like hone in on this one thing.
Well, before the Riflespeed came out, there really was not, certainly what I have experienced or would consider to be an adjustable gas system for this rifle that was truly durable and easy to use.
This is a beefy system. It's not like a little,
Yeah, and that, it's kind of a pejorative to some people, but the military grade or duty grade, that's intended to convey the fact that this is designed for hard use.
Yeah.
Whatever you think of that term. So this system actually enables either the home builder or the OEM to deliberately oversize the gas port in the rifle for nominal conditions, meaning they have enough gas for the worst conditions.
Yeah, adverse essentially.
Exactly. So the 4 horsemen of death for an AR, you've got no suppressor, dirty gun, lower pressured ammo, 223 or 5 versus 5.56, and cold conditions. Okay, if you put those 4 things together, that's like the worst case scenario for your AR. So you have to have a gas port that would be considered oversized in order for the gun to run in those conditions. That's what started this whole thing. But now, because you've got a gas control, you don't have the negative consequences of that in all the other conditions.
Right.
And it's simple to use, so it's just been a real winner.
Yeah, I love it. I don't think anyone watching this video questions that because, I've been talking about it for 4 years. So I've been talking to you for 4 years, Tennessee boys. So
Yeah.
Kyle, thank you so much for showing us, giving us, I guess, the state of Riflespeed. Thank you for coming to the show and showing. I think more people need to get their hands on this thing and check it out. So
Very good.
it's been good talking to you.
Likewise.
Guys, thank you for tuning in to TFBTV and TFBTV Showtime. Stay tuned for more from GunCon 2025.